Welcome! This tutorial will introduce students how to use prompt travel with ControlNet, so as to create a relatively smooth transition between prompts. This tutorial builds upon a previous tutorial, so it is recommended that you also have watched this. Let's begin by installing the extension Prompt Travel. Let's go to Extensions, let's go to Available, let's load. Then we can search for Prompt Travel. And here we have it, we can install it. Let's make sure to go back to the Installed subtab and apply and restart the user interface. Now, with Prompt Travel installed, we can go here to Scripts and we can select Prompt Travel. The default settings work perfectly fine. Since Prompt Travel uses a singular seed to make sure that the transition between prompts are as smooth as possible, it is not possible to use the wildcards, or rather it is of no use to use wildcards since these are variated depending on the seed, and the seed will be one singular seed, so there will be no variation. We can make sure that we use as negative prompt the one that we used for the digitized sketch here. And then to omit these wildcards we can exchange this positive prompt with perhaps this one. What the prompt travel script does is interpolating different prompts on different lines. So in this case we have one line which equals one stage, and we can copy this, press enter to add a new line, Ctrl V to paste, and now we have two stages. Now they are identical, so there will be no difference, but if we change neoclassical architecture to brutalism, now we have one token of variation between these two stages. It is also possible to use different stages for the negative prompts, but as of now we use one general that is applicable for both of these stages. Our end goal here is to use both prompt travel and ControlNet from an image that we have ourselves authored, so as to guide the outputs with an influencing image of our own, so as not to create an haphazard output, instead making sure that the output is actually relevant to our design process. We'll use this image as our influencing image. And then, having started the user interface, it's a little finicky. Let's make sure that we disable so as to enable, and now we see that these three units are all enabled, so we disable those we don't want to use, and make sure that this is now green lit. The preprocessor should be invert, as stated in the previous tutorial, since the color range here is inverted with regards to how the Stable Diffusion ControlNet model has been trained, and we'll use depth as our model. It's important that both the batch count and the batch size are both set to 1. The script will only work on singular generations. While we could start to generate here, it's going to be a little finicky using both ControlNet and prompt travel. So in the first stage here, mainly as a point of reference, we're going to disable ControlNet and generate. With the generation complete, we can go down here, press this button, and then in File Explorer we can navigate to this, and here we see the individual frames, and here we see the output animation. To say that the transition was haphazard and quite unintelligible would be an understatement. But now you saw how it works. Enabling ControlNet and generating once again. With the generation done, we can go down here and press this, and then we'll go to File Explorer and open this. And here we see the individual frames. We will have to go back here to the individual frames, because if we look at the generated animation here, every other frame is the depth map that we have used with ControlNet, so of course this cannot be used. The easiest way to remedy this is with FFmpeg, which you are already acquainted with, as per the previous tutorial. We'll need to fix one thing here before using FFmpeg. The prompt travel script first generates the initial image, and then it generates the last image, and then all of those in between. So we'll need to make sure that we can just change this to 31, so as to make sure that this frame is in the proper place, and then we can select the first one, shift click the last one, right mouse button click, rename, and then we'll do just outputs. Now they are ordered correctly, and we'll use a variation of the command that we used in the previous tutorial. So we can actually use this as our outsets. Shift right mouse button to open PowerShell window here, and then we can paste this, but before running it we'll need to change the frame rate. The prompt travel script, it generates an image with 10 FPS. So let's make sure that we match this. So 10 as our frame rate there, and 10 FPS as the frame rate of the movie itself. And then we can press enter, and when the command is done, we have an animation here. We can look at it initially. It's a little rough, but still tells the story. To make this even more smoother, our recommendation is using an interpolation software called Flowframes. The source code of Flowframes may be freely downloaded from the GitHub page and be compiled with Visual Studio, or it can alternatively be downloaded from this link, a pre-compiled build. So then you'll simply click download now and name your price. If you just want to download it, you just click this link and download. We already have it here, so we'll simply start the program, and it might initialize for a while. When it says ready, you can go to the interpolation tab here, and then you can choose any interpolation AI you want, but the first one here works good. And then we can go to the File Explorer window here, and we'll choose this animation that we stitched with FFmpeg as our input, so we'll simply click and drag this here. As we see, the input FPS is 10, and the default settings only yield 20 FPS with normal playback speed. We would actually want to interpolate the video and increase the number of frames by a factor of 10, so yielding 100 FPS from the input 10. But then we also want to decrease the playback speed by a factor of 8, and thus this will yield only 12.5 FPS, but which is sufficient enough. And then we can interpolate. And when the interpolation process is done, we can simply watch this interpolated video here, seeing that it is much smoother than the original. Thank you for your time.